Welcome to the Back to Me podcast, where we help multicultural incoming freshman women and men manage their entire college experience throughout post-graduation to successfully transition into entrepreneurship and corporate workspaces as new hires.
Back to me. Oh, I turned it around. I'm back to me. I finally figured it out. I'm back to me. So when you think you have nothing, back to me. I go back to me. Yeah, I'm back to me.
Hello, everyone. It's your host, Yoli Tamu. Many students are interested in seeking mental health support, but often find it difficult to balance this support with their academic schedule. In this week's episode, Seli Fakorzi, Director of Mental Health and Client Liaison for TimelyCare, joins us to share how this system of care partners with colleges, students, and professors to ensure mental health support is readily available 24 hours a day. As the most trusted higher education virtual provider on campuses nationwide, discover the many ways this powerful app can connect you to peer support programs, culturally diverse clinicians, and relationship-building workshops that are available right at your fingertips. Enjoy. Some of you on campus are familiar with this organization, and they're doing incredible work, not only for students, but for professors. I mean, we all need some mental health support. It's Mental Health Awareness Month, and I'm so excited to have Seli Fakorzi, Director of Mental Health at TimelyCare. How are you doing?
Awesome. I am doing well, Yoli. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to have our conversation tonight.
Yes, I'm so grateful that you said yes. We love it when you powerful people say yes, because I mean, wow, mental health, it's not about being a trend. It's a real problem.
It's definitely a problem right now. We've seen a lot of changes over the past 3 to 5 years, and particularly the students that we're talking about today, they've seen a lot of changes.
Yes. They're the warriors. I mean, they survived the quarantine. They can teach us a few things, right?
For sure.
So now, as a director of mental health, I just wanted to know, that's a big title, and I'm sure you carry a lot of responsibility. So what inspired you, number one, to pursue this field and just even serve young people in this capacity?
That's a great question. Actually, one of my favorite questions to answer in interviews. So, one of the biggest things that encouraged me was the most influential was I had a mentor very early on in mental health. He was already a supervising clinician. I definitely gleaned a lot of information from him, but he challenged me early on to find a population that I was passionate about and basically to understand where I could give back. And when you think about giving back to anything, it's like this idea of paying it forward. Do it. What would you do for free? And that idea led me to just kind of have it in the back of my mind ongoing. And I started to work within my licensure. I started to work with Child Protective Services and found that I was naturally led to the children that were aging out of the system. So we're talking about 16 to 25. And that's a very highly transitional period in life for just anyone. But if you pile on top of it the challenges that some children have aging out of a system with no family support, a lot of times those core conversations that would be had with like a mom or a dad or a relative aren't really happening sometimes. So that is where I began to develop that passion area. I still volunteer in that space, very committed to that age group. It's so, like I said, impressionable. There's so much transition happening there. And then when I met up with TimelyCare, I felt like that was like a good coupling of the skills as well as the patient type or the client type of dealing with students in that same time frame. So even some of the students we support through TimelyCare are students that have experienced the foster care system, understand what that's about, but now they're in higher ed. And what does that look like for them? So we definitely have non-traditional faculty and staff that connect with our platform, but that was kind of my passion point area and got me into really wanting to serve this population of clients.
My goodness, that says a lot about you. You're still volunteering?
Yes.
That's fantastic.
We're giving back, Yoli. We have to do that.
Oh my God. I mean, you're in the field, so you're already being of service, but to do the additional thing, and volunteer is fantastic. That's beautiful. I love that. So now at Timely Care, I'm just thinking there's so much going on. We're still kind of dealing with the pandemic and trying to figure out who we are on the other side of the pandemic and being quarantined. Are there topics that often come up with that population? Because I believe that is the transitional population. I agree with you.
Yes, for sure. So we have some top reasons when we're pulling some of the stats and understanding what students are talking about when they reach our platform. There's some top reasons that they visit our platform when it relates to mental health. So it usually varies around them seeking support from either a direct provider or a professional and or their peers, because we all know a lot of students in this age go directly to people that are experiencing the same thing they do. So those topics are around anxiety and stress and depression and relationships. Those would be like our top four. And then we also have on the just the student focused peer support side, relationships are number one. So they're going to each other to kind of survey, get a better understanding of what's happening in other people's relationships, what's their experience, do they have the same stressors? And then we also get to see them in a space where they're supporting each other in a way that's healthy. So they're able to access the professional support on our platform, but also get some insight into what their peers are doing. And it's a very dynamic place to see them actually direct each other to getting professional support and professional help. And one of the benefits that we bring to the table is just allowing them to have that specially curated platform just for them. And even when we have self care content, it has the professional, clinically based, evidence based been to all of the information, but it's geared toward their specific population. So we don't let them go all the way down the road just with, a peer, but it also is very helpful when they're encouraging each other to do the right thing, which is to get help and to recognize some of the warning signs when they need to get help.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, peer counseling is valuable. And I love that you say they do try to connect with each other so they don't feel alone. They don't feel like they're by themselves. And on your platform, it's virtual. So are there virtual groups that come together? How does Timely Care service the student and the college? How does that relationship work?
What happens is once we partner with the college campus, what we do is they are offered mental health services, medical, as well as health coaching, psychiatry. So the students are able to enter into our platform in many different ways. There's the self care services, as well as the peer community. And that's when students are kind of navigating on their own, trying to figure out, okay, what do I want to get into? What do I need more education about? What's been bothering me? What do I need to focus on? And because of that, we can also get them into maybe a professional visit with our Talk Now on demand service that's 24/7, 365. Those providers are working with students to help them understand like what's going on now, what are the best next logical steps, and then also understanding is scheduled counseling or professional clinical setting counseling, is that something that's going to be more appropriate so that they can achieve the treatment outcomes and the relief and the understanding that they're looking for long term and realize what that looks like to feel better and to be better. So those are their options. We also have health coaching and psychiatry and medical services that play into that. So students are able to make sure that they're getting the service they need and also having the variety of support. I'm going to kind of dial back just a little bit just so you have a better idea overall what we're doing and kind of the scope that our partners get to take advantage of and just the trusted support. So we currently service over 2.3 million students nationwide. So 1 out of 10 US college students right now have access to Timely Care. We're at over 350 campuses, and we've basically been higher ed's number one choice for virtual care and well-being overall. So that's something we're pretty proud of. When we're looking at our student body and what they have access to, even in the peer aspect, they have an access to a student body that's 2.3 million students strong, which is pretty significant when we're talking about what the students are experiencing, how they're seeking support. And then our overall vision is really just to empower them to be well, to thrive, and to thrive in all areas and aspects of their life so they can start to realize what that looks like to have improved health and well-being. And when we're able to partner with campuses, we're just an extension of that care. So that's the real basic benefit. And the thing that makes a difference for the student is the fact they have the access 24/7, 365. And that's not typical at all campuses because while our campuses are doing the very most they can to support students, there's that need for additional reinforcement and support in all areas, like those after hour appointments when we don't have someone in clinic, in an office. That is so helpful. Over 50% of all of our visits on our platform are after hours and on the weekends. So we're reaching those non traditional students, and they're able to have a counseling session at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a Saturday or a Sunday when the campus office is closed or not operating. So that's just in brief, but students have access to all of those, that book of services, as well as the flexibility of scheduling and accessing anytime, anywhere.
My goodness. It sounds like you've answered the call. 1 out of 10
One out of 10, yes.
people. My goodness. And then when I think about the confidentiality of it all, the fact that you're virtual, you hear about the reasons that kids don't want to go because they feel like something's wrong with them or it's embarrassing to go. But to have the convenience of your program, and I believe you have an app as well, right? Is that how they locate you?
Yes, the students are able to log onto an app right on their phone, so they can have a visit virtually anytime, anywhere. They could be in their room, they could be in a bathroom, they could be in the library. It just doesn't matter. We have students contacting us from cars just to be like, "Hey, I wanted to pop on and have a scheduled session," or in the moment of just kind of a meltdown. What does that look like? Who do you call for support? And it really helps, even if they're talking about stress or anxiety, or they may be in crisis. That's also a good time for them to reach out to.
So cool. Now, do they have access to cultural diversity? Because sometimes that becomes an issue on campus. Like, everybody's a professional, and yes, they have the licenses, but do I connect with you? That becomes the next question. So, are there options available within the app so that they can find a like minded therapist that they think will connect with them?
Oh, for sure. That's one of the claims to fame too. And while campuses in person may struggle to, find that level of diversity and then hire and then put bodies in the actual clinic, we have the advantage of having a virtual platform where we're able to attract more clinicians of a diverse base. So yes, having a license is one thing. Like you said, that's great. You have the license, the training, the background. Over 50% of our providers that support our platform identify as BIPOC providers, meaning they have that lived experience. They're able to bring that to the table. We also encourage our providers to engage in ongoing training and development related to cultural awareness, as well as how do we support students in the LGBTQIA community? How are we making sure that those students are also getting in touch with providers who share a lived experience? And if we're looking at diversity and the umbrella approach of it all, understanding that, everyone's experience is different. It can be based on religion, socioeconomic status. Where did you come from within the United States or outside of the US? Are you a first generation college student? And those all make a difference. Some of our students are on campus and live a very different life than what it looks like when they return home on break. And that can be some of the barriers that have caused them not to seek care. And then in some cultures, it just hasn't been a discussion. So when we're looking at not only students seeking care for the first time, but how do we educate and support them through the process of, like you said, searching for a provider? How do you know who you're going to connect with? What's going to be the easiest entry point for you?
Because I know just speaking to some of the VPs on different college campuses, that is a concern. Being at the student centers, diversity comes up a lot for the students. And, if you're meeting that need, that's fantastic. And then, like you said, after hours, I mean, wow, you guys have figured this thing out. You figured it out.
The focus is decreasing barriers to care and making sure students have easy on ramps to care. They understand how to access the resources. It's easy as logging onto an app that's something they're familiar with. But it also helps on the faculty and staff side when they're looking to refer a student to care. You mentioned just some of the issues that some professors are being encountered with, conversations that are way outside of their scope. We don't expect a chemistry professor to guide a student through a mental health conversation or a mental health crisis or a breakdown, but at least being able to support them to say, hey, this is something that's accessible to you at any point in time when you get ready. This is something you can do. That's a tremendous benefit to giving them the proper tools to help students in the moment, and then also being relief to campus counseling centers that are already overwhelmed with the students that are presenting in person. And it's difficult, it's almost impossible to think that we're going to staff our way out of a mental health crisis at this point. So,
All
additional
hands
hands
on
on
deck.
deck. Yeah,
Yes, all hands on deck.
you took the words right out of my mouth. Yes,
Yeah, I
exactly.
mean, hey, we're there. And when you mentioned that the professor has access to mental health professionals right away, that's fantastic. And that you're also servicing the professor because they're dealing with their own issues. And I'm sure there is a population of them that want their own virtual support,
Yes.
right?
That is
And
very
so you help them. So that's amazing.
yes.
My
So
goodness.
we can help them one-on-one with, their own mental health and support, as well as we work as advisors for them. If they're just wanting to connect with us to say, hey, this is what a student presented. How do I have this conversation? It's well out of my scope. I don't want to say the wrong thing. And it's a very uncomfortable position to be in for a professor, one of the, faculty or staff or admin at the college or university, and you're just not used to having it. So we're there to also coach them through what that can sound like and look like to help point the student in the right direction.
That's so great. My goodness. Now, you said some of the topics include relationships and relationship building. So, does that mean identifying partnership? Does that mean identifying your sexuality? I mean, relationships, it's a humongous topic. What stands out the most? What are they asking about?
It is navigating the nuances of relationships, the meeting people, the breaking up, the developing ongoing relationship that has good communication. What are healthy relationships? So even in our self-care journeys that students can access at any time, it's part of the self-care content, but there's a piece on how to develop healthy relationships. And that has been such a game changer for some students just to get the education around it and what it really looks like to have healthy communication. Sometimes we didn't grow up with that. It might be a new concept. We have many students that aren't used to developing relationships with other people. I have many students that are always like, hey, I don't feel like peopling. And after so many years of that, it's hard to develop core relationships. And we're also trying to help them in that process of building strong support systems that are going to help keep them safe and keep them aware of where they are mentally, emotionally, and physically to be well over time.
I love that. I mean, because here, as you know, we're the Back to Me podcast, and it's all about coming back to self and figuring out what your needs are so then you can share those with other people. You know what I mean? So I'm so glad to hear you saying healthy conversations. Now, our listeners are that transitional group. You know, we primarily are dealing with that freshman that's coming in college for the first time, and that even that college graduate heading out into the workforce, and conflict resolution skills are key. So, is there a conversation around that within that healthy relationship workshop or class?
Yes, there's actually points that cover how to handle conflict, how to have hard conversations, and that could span any relationship. That could be with parents, that could be with siblings, that could be with your peers or significant other. But we have a lot of students that are reaching out just because they want to get better at these things overall. Sometimes a major stressor point for students is going home over the holidays. You would not believe the number of students that just call and say, how do I have this conversation with my mom about all of the things that have been going on in my life over the past couple semesters, or my dad? And, how is this going to go? What can I expect? We do role playing with students in Talk Now. Just how are you going to have this conversation? What do you need to bring up? But that's also another way for them to get professional support as well as the self care support with our content on our platform.
Oh my goodness. I love that you brought up about the parent-child dynamic. Wow, because especially in college, you're growing up and you're transitioning really in a major way. And when you go home, you're an adult now. And so you have an opinion, but you have to be respectful. So that's really great that you have role play. I love that. I love that. So now for our listeners, I'm thinking, are there a few ways or maybe some tips to just address what a healthy relationship looks like? Maybe there's some things that come to mind that stand out.
I think what does come to mind is what you just pointed back to is just kind of how do we focus on self and understand what it looks like to be well overall. One is to really start out with having some level of self compassion. I think a lot of times that goes unmentioned. It's not something common in a lot of cultures or families to really talk about what it means to pay attention to self and have a level of compassion, not only for yourself, but the people around you, but it also raises your awareness of what's happening in your body and in your mind on a regular basis. We can also normalize that conversation around what well being looks like with the people that are closest to you or that you've built in that support system or your circle of trust. I like to say that. But also pay attention to what your body is doing. As you pay more attention to what your own body is doing, you can start to notice gaps in care for other people. So, like, are you getting enough sleep? Are you eating well? Are you hydrated? How about drink some water? Those are things that people just don't think about sometimes. And especially some of our students aren't completely aware of the effects of, let's say, lack of sleep and fatigue, how that has an effect on how they show up in their relationships, how they show up academically. And that can make a big difference. If you have a friend or a peer that'll tell you, hey, listen, you haven't been eating well lately, and you also have been sleep deprived, and you're acting a little off right now.
Yeah.
Gonna forgive you, but you're a little off right now. And that can be a powerful statement coming from a peer that can hold you accountable and vice versa. I would also say for those healthy relationships, make sure that you're able to have some accountability. Make sure that that self-care and awareness that you are concentrating on for yourself, that you're able to apply that to your friends and the people that are close to you. So when you learn that you can see something and also say something to bring it to their awareness means that you're monitoring yourself and also noticing areas to support others. And that builds relationships. That builds significant, meaningful, strong, central areas of support for you. And a lot of students are rebuilding those systems of support when they go to college. It's not the same as it was back home or in your family unit. So all of those things affect your day to day and the feedback that you're getting from the individuals that are having that daily contact with you. Some of those feelings of stress, anxiety, and depression are normal. However, when it starts to affect your daily living and cycles, you're not able to eat well, you don't show up in class or do your work. Those are things to notice and also notice in your friend group around you.
This is so good. I mean, as you were talking, I was thinking about what you said about students want to learn, they want to get better, they want to know tools. And so oh, this is so mind blowing to me because you guys, like I said earlier, you're answering the call. You're in an app, you're confidential, you have diversity. I mean, you're checking all the boxes. So, as we wrap up, I always close with final words of encouragement. And at the top, you mentioned being a volunteer for a specific group, 16 to 25. So, what advice do you have for that listener, 16 to 25, that is listening to this podcast as well, as we head out? What advice do you have for them in their transition in general, just the concept of transition? Is there any advice you have for that student?
I like the fact that you broaden it too, because I think the college experience, even for non-traditional students, working parents, older ages, younger ages, even now that we're getting, it's one message for everyone that sometimes, the process of well-being doesn't happen overnight. The idea that you can have some compassion with yourself, it's a process. And seeking professional support isn't always the first step, but getting sound education or psychoeducation in areas that you're concerned about, or when you're paying attention to your own mental health, there might be concerns, but seek out really sound information. Let's not let, social media completely guide your treatment regimen. That's not always the healthiest, but let's try it before we get overwhelmed. That's the major importance of why we created the self-care content and the peer community, is to make sure students are able to have access to support before they feel overwhelmed, before they feel burnt out, before they're in a crisis. And that preventative mental health support is something that we've been really concentrated on in educating students in places where they may not have received it before. And if they see someone else struggling, they may be able to say something because they have, tools in their back pocket that they've either learned from professional interaction or through self-care content, and they're able to not only support themselves, but their peers around them. So I would definitely say it's not an overnight accomplishment. We're all still working at it. It's a bit convicting even when I say, hey, are you eating and sleeping well? Are you hydrated? I think that spans beyond 16 to 25. I think a lot of us could really do better in those areas and show up brighter and more energetic and with more energy, as well as with more to give in those spaces. So yeah, it's about taking care of yourself, but understanding it's a journey.
I love it. I love it. Not a destination. Fantastic. So now if they want to reach out to you, where should they start? Would you want to send them to IG? You want to send them to your website? Where should they start?
I would say the best place is TimelyCare.com. It's one word, all one word, and we are on various social media platforms. Students should follow us on Instagram, and to get a sample of the type of support that TimelyCare offers, that's a great way to do that. And if you don't know whether your college or university already has TimelyCare access, you can reach out to your campus health center or counseling center, and they can give you more direction in that way. But TimelyCare, all one word.com is the easiest place to find us.
I love this. I love this. Well, I am so honored to have you, really.
I enjoyed this. Thank you, Yoli. I appreciate it.
Yes, this was fantastic. So thank you for being with us. I mean, I really think you're a powerful resource, and I think you're going to save a lot of lives, you guys.
That is the goal.
That is the goal. All right. Well, you take care of yourself, and I'll talk to you very soon.
Thank you so much, Yoli. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye. Thank you for joining us. So before you get overwhelmed, be sure to download the TimelyCare app and get the support you need any time of the day. For more information about other episodes, remember to subscribe to the Back to Me podcast, College and Beyond. I'm your host, Yoli Tamu. Leave a review at the end of this podcast. And if you would like to learn more about other special events, join the Back to Me podcast Facebook group, or simply text Back to Me to 833-206-4565. Until next time, be well.
Back to me. Oh, I turned it around. I'm back to me.